Welcome on in everyone and welcome to the Cup of Tea channel. So Blizzard have released the patch notes for patch 1.1.3 which will be out on August 29th. This is mainly a minor patch update, but it does have a lot of large changes, so we're going to go through the notes in this video, so be sure to stick around. So we're going to start things off with the monster affixes. So this is quite a big change in what they're going to be doing in terms of monster CC, an issue that players have been bringing up quite often where we get hit with a certain ability such as Frozen and we end up with our character being stuck for quite some time and ending up dying the majority of the time, which is quite frustrating. So they've decided to reduce the amount of time we're going to be CC'd. So in terms of fun and playstyle, it's going to be a lot more easy to clear through content. As well as certain ranged mobs, they will not be able to apply the chilled effect, which is also a huge improvement. So it's more for the melee based mobs that can apply the effects. So the cold enchanted elites that attack in quick succession, for example the ghost archers and snake brutes, will no longer proc that cold enchanted on every hit. It's not only the mobs themselves that are receiving changes, it's also the affixes such as chilling winds, where when it spawns it will not be overlapping as often now. Problem is, when it overlapped, it would actually proc that frozen effect rather quickly, so with less of that happening, you're more likely to be able to escape that certain CC. It's also the abilities from certain mobs such as the Cannibal Gorger, which can now be a lot more easily avoided. So basically he would charge up an attack, chase you down, and if he hit you with it, you'd be stunned for quite some time. You would now be able to avoid that a lot more easily. Speaking of stun effects as well, the Nangari Snake Eyes will now stun you for 1.25 seconds rather than its 1.5, so another reduction in terms of stun CC. And for this final point right here, other changes that reduce how often the player can be targeted by crowd control. So I don't know if it's a matter of if you're solo player, they're going to be doing their CC abilities a lot less, or if you're in a party, they're going to be doing a different priority target for each CC, so one person's not going to get bullied whilst you're doing your dungeon runs. And the following developers note, these changes are aimed at the player having less time being crowd controlled and receiving more recovery time after being crowd controlled, especially at the higher tier worlds. So this is another mob change as well, not to do with the CC, but more the damage output on certain abilities of monsters. So the Death Explosion from the Fire Enchanted monsters releases one less wave and deals 20% less damage. Whilst I agree with Blizzard on improving the one less wave and making it just one explosion to avoid the 20% damage reduction, I feel like they should revert that back and give it its full damage, make it an actual punishment if you stay within that explosive circle. Otherwise it loses that element of danger if you could just soak it. But one thing I 100% am glad to see is the damage from the bloated corpse fiend charge attack has now been reduced by 14%. When those dudes charge into you and hit you, you would more than often be one-shotted, and sometimes that can cost you the run of the dungeon itself. So to be honest, I'm very happy to see that change be implemented into the game. We're now going to take a step away from the monsters in Diablo and go on to the miscellaneous tab of the patch notes, going over the item affixes. So for the developers note, they've said we're adjusting how affixes are displayed on item tooltips in the Season of Blood. This change will lay the foundation of our ongoing work on making random affixes easier to compare. They have made a change for the filters for the Codex of Power, where your seasonal and my class filters for that menu will now remember the settings previously selected by the player. So if you ever close that tab, you would reopen it and you would have to redo your search filters. It would now remember what you had on the filter previously. So if you ever needed to go to your stash and then back to the occultist and reopen that menu, it will have it right there already found, saving you some time. So being a PC player myself on Diablo, I haven't had to go through this issue, but they have said navigating the glyph upgrade menu on controller will now feel more natural. So again, another improvement for you console players. And then this last patch update, the achievements, trophies and challenges with shared unlock criteria across platforms now transfer via cross-platform progression as well. You will now be able to access all your achievements and everything like that on that one account, regardless of what console you're playing on. And now we move on to the bug fixes for the season itself, the Season of Malignant. So they fixed an issue where the Shadow Clone provided the Caged Heart of Trickery displayed an improper tooltip in the Fields of Hatred, as well as the fixed issue where crowd control effects could be applied to the Shadow Clone from the Caged Heart of Trickery and then carried over to the player. So for example, when you subterfuge skill, leave behind an unstable shadow decoy trap. This taunts enemies and the shadow decoy trap will explode after 5.5 seconds and then dealing a certain amount of damage. This cannot occur more than once every 5 seconds. So what would end up happening if the clone got frozen or stunned, and after the effect it would then transfer over to the actual main player itself, CCing them as well. So they have now fixed that issue. And as for the Caged Heart of Calculated, it would not trigger its stun effect if the skill was imbued. We then go to fix an issue where monsters could not open the door to a chamber where Vashan is encountered in the Ravening Pit. They've also fixed an issue where the Echo Vashan quest would not be completed after defeating Vashan if the player had previously died to him. fix an issue of completed seasonal journey objective displayed in the recently completed section of the challenges menu. As well as for Shan, the rewards after defeating for the first time wouldn't go to the player stash if they were missed, so now they will. And then fix an issue where the Echo for Shan did not have a guaranteed legendary drop at chance after level 35. And then lastly, fix an issue where Cormon would not appear after defeating Vashan during the Cold Heart Truth quest if the party leader was killed during that fight. We're then going to move on to the gameplay changes. So when the following skills or powers were applied by a player on a monster, other players were unexpectedly able to benefit from these effects. These issues have been fixed, such as the skills and passives of Decrepify, where on a lucky hit, enemies hit while afflicted with the Decrepify have a 15% chance to reduce your active cooldowns by 1 second. So everyone that was in the party were benefiting from that cooldown reduction as well as the Necromancer. They've also fixed this for Shadow Blight, Twisting Blades, Shatter. These effects were also taking place from the Paragon nodes and the glyphs such as Hemorrhage, where enemies that have been affected by your bleeding for more than 3 seconds take 12% increased damage from you, as well as Exploit Weakness, Revenge, Dominate, Fang and Claw, Dead Razor, and Amplify. And although this seems as a nerf, I can understand why they did this, because if everyone's effects were all stacking with each other, content would be cleared out super easily, and then it wouldn't be as fun then. You'd be way too overpowered for the content. And then they've also fixed the issue for the Druid where the player's inventory could fill up with Spirit Blessings, blocking the progression for quests that had items associated with them. They've also fixed the issue where players would be losing their Aberrant Cinders upon entering a cellar during the Helltide events. And then this issue, which I've personally come across myself, they fixed the issue where players could become temporarily stationary, where you could not move your character at all when trying to evade immediately after casting a channel spell, for example, Incinerate or Lightning Storm. They've also fixed the issue with guaranteed drops from goblins and bosses in the world, so for some reason players were not receiving them even though they had defeated them between levels 15 to 40 for the goblins and for level 35 for multiple bosses. We now move on to the user interface fixes. So they fixed an issue where disbanding of the clan prompt directs the player to enter the clan's name instead of the provided code. They've also fixed the issue where the quest marker for searching for the records room during the Answers of Ashes quest wouldn't disappear after advancing past the objective. We then go to fix an issue of the Blessed Mother Departed objective reference the wrong name on the Echo Hatred dungeon. There would be 2 icons overlapping each other for Command's Workbench in the Dry Steppes. And then fix the issue where progress notifications for untracked whispers could be repeatedly displayed in the same update. We then move on to the last section of the patch notes, which is covering the miscellaneous. So Blizzard have fixed an issue where mounted NPCs could appear to be riding an invisible horse. We've all no doubt seen this as we ventured through Sanctuary, but obviously they have joked along with the brackets of ghost horses, ? You never may know. Could be a thing in the future. Blizzard have also fixed the Dead to Rights quest where players that cannot equip daggers could equip the skeleton key. And then fix an issue where progression could be blocked during the Jewel of the East quest in co-op play. Fix an issue where the Spirit of Love Grove Druid class quest could not have its progression blocked if the player joined a party after activating the last stone. Fix an issue where rogues could use concealment to skip a phase in the Echo of Lilith encounter. That's actually quite broken. And then various performance and stability improvements across all platforms, the bog standard. So that covers everything for patch 1.1.3. Again, this will be released on August 29th, so I'm looking forward to the CC changes mainly. That's going to be a major improvement when it comes to progressing and completing dungeons. But let me know what you guys think in the comment with the patch notes and that. But I'm very happy with the Diablo team in terms of the amount of fixings as also quality of life changes they are applying quite quickly over the progression since the release of Diablo, and I honestly cannot wait to see what's going to be happening for season 2. So no doubt there will be a campfire chat in the future, which we'll be doing a video to cover that. But until then, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.